Hey guys, how you doing? You guys remember that part in God of War where Kratos gets to that chamber of Odin, or Odin's Vault, and he finds those different symbols for a bunch of other pantheons of gods? Well, today we're going to be talking about the other gods from those pantheons that could potentially kill Kratos, or defeat Kratos in combat. Because Kratos more or less decimated the entirety of Greek/Roman mythology, those gods.
The death of Olympus means the death of us all.
Then prepare for your death, Poseidon.
With him probably going to be doing more or less the same thing to the Norse gods, probably because it's Kratos. We want to find out if it's actually possible for the other gods from the other pantheons to be able to actually end Kratos. Now, without beating around the bush too much, we're going to jump right into the pantheon that I think is the most likely to be able to kill Kratos, and that's the Egyptian pantheon out of the pantheons of the East. See, the Egyptian pantheon has a lot of heavy hitters, just chaps that you don't really want to fight. First of them that I'll talk about is Isis. Now, Isis is a particularly powerful being, not just in terms of how magically skilled she'd be in a fight or anything like that, but she's got incredibly strong willpower. She pushed on through her husband being killed and had the strength to be able to revive him, pushed on during dark times, having to raise her son under the rulership of Set, this being that embodied chaos, and also had to flee and hide away from this person who murdered her husband. She endured Horus cutting off her own head and having it replaced with some sort of cow or bull, something along those lines. And so yeah, her willpower is incredibly strong, at least definitely when compared to other gods, generally from other pantheons it seems. On top of that, she's pretty crafty as well. She was able to poison Ra and get him to sort of submit to her will for a bit, so that was pretty nice, a nice power moment for Isis. And on top of that, she also knows some pretty powerful magic, so you generally don't want to mess with Isis on your day-to-day rounds. Now, I bring all of this up because the fact that she's quite crafty and she knows quite a few magics, and Kratos isn't exactly immune to, well, you know, having his mind warped a bit. After all, he did end up killing his family, and he didn't really want to do that. He was kind of sort of taken up by rage, I suppose you could say. Isis has the potential to take him over in that sort of way, I think. And on top of that, yes, she is a very skilled magic user, so she could definitely hold her own in a fight against Kratos. Now, if it actually came to a fight against Kratos, would she be murdered or killed in a straight-up fair fight? In the end, yes, I don't think it would be easy for Kratos, but yes, in the end, she probably would die. And that's something that I think carries over to a lot of the gods generally that we're going to be talking about. Bastet, yes, she's revived at the end of every day during a fight with the Apep. I don't see why that would be necessarily all that different if she was to fight someone else, if she was to fight Kratos, but she'd still probably lose to Kratos at the end of the day. But then we have the interesting question of Ra. See, because I'm pretty sure Thoth, depending on which version of Thoth you're using, Thoth could quite easily tear Kratos apart. He probably has a spell for that, right? But when it comes to Ra and Kratos' healing factor, not too sure what the extent of his healing factor really is, if it can be overloaded, and if it can, well, I think the sun has the best chance of doing that sort of damage to Kratos than anything else, and Ra definitely could do that with his control over the sun, or his powers, you know, associated with the sun. And so I guess the question of whether Ra could kill Kratos is something that can eventually be explored. I'd like to think that Kratos probably isn't so powerful that he couldn't be killed by the sun. You know, he had a lot of preparation or help, and he used the Blade of Olympus to ultimately take down Zeus. You know, taking away the fact that Zeus was an immortal and finishing him off. That very same blade was used to kill Kratos himself. So, you know, Kratos himself isn't exactly this immortal god, so I don't see why that necessarily wouldn't be the case that Ra wouldn't be able to deal with Kratos. But moving on to Celtic gods, Cuchulainn, I think, is a definite candidate. It would probably be a good fight, definitely be a good fight, you know, it would last for quite a while again, like some of these fights would. But ultimately, Cuchulainn can die. He has been killed in battle. It's true that when he was killed, it was thanks to the fact that he was weakened, but Kratos is no pushover, right? There's a very strong possibility that Kratos could just outright overpower Cuchulainn, and then no more Cuchulainn. And yeah, Cuchulainn isn't a joke. He was able to topple a castle with his own bare hands, and he was fighting opponents that were way stronger than him. And this guy didn't even reach the age of 20, so yeah, Cuchulainn is actually kind of insane when you think about it. But Kratos is just a bit more. But then you have a character like the Morrigan who's pretty interesting, because there's a point in the God of War games where Kratos literally goes after the Sisters of Fate and kills them, and that helps him to, well, it ultimately helps him to take out the gods that he wants to take out, ultimately leading to Zeus's death. Kratos wouldn't even necessarily know what the Morrigan's capabilities are. He wouldn't necessarily know how powerful the Morrigan would be, and so he'd probably be extremely screwed if he was to actually come across the Morrigan, because although Kratos has this thing of where he can challenge fate, or he likes to reference the fact that he's challenged fate, he had the power of information and the know on his side. I don't think he's going to have that against the Morrigan, a new foe, unless someone would actually, be able to tell him, like Gaia told him about the Fates. So, in this case, yeah, the Morrigan probably could very well easily, just like the Fates could, cause outright just kill Kratos. So yes, rip Kratos. And when it comes to the Japanese gods, Susanoo, there's a version of Susanoo's story where he goes down to become a god of the underworld, and in that case, he's already dead. So would it even be possible for Kratos to actually end or kill Susanoo? And we know that the Shinto gods aren't immortal in the sense that they can never be killed under any circumstances, because Izanami, the mother of quite a lot of Shinto gods, well, she perished when Kagetsuchi burnt her alive, right? So the gods aren't exactly immortal in the sense that they can't be killed no matter what. But that doesn't mean that they're not extremely powerful. Amaterasu, arguably the strongest Shinto god, when she left the earth, it was left in darkness, and all of the gods collectively wanted her back so much that they did everything they could to get her back into the world. So her influence is quite important to the Shinto gods, at least. And also, she had a feud, quite a bit of conflict with her brother, where she would fight him from time to time, challenge him to fight from time to time. So she definitely caused Kratos some trouble, perhaps even kill Kratos, because the thing is, she's more or less an embodiment of the sun. And just like with Ra, if the sun has the capability to cancel out Kratos' healing factor, well, then Kratos is more or less screwed, let's be honest here. So that fight could go either way. Same with Ra, actually. Ra also has the potential to be killed by Kratos, but because of the sheer power that both of those gods wield, because they're solar deities, they're sun, goddess of the sun, I question whether Kratos would actually stand that much of a chance. Now, there is one other god that I wanted to mention, and actually kind of like an entire set of gods. Those are the primordial gods themselves, and in the God of War universe, we know that the primordial gods can die, or at least some of them can die, because Kratos ends up killing Gaia with the Sword of Olympus at the end of God of War 3. So we know that they can actually be killed or harmed, or, they can die. Or at the very least, he can kill the Greek primordial gods. Because of course, at the start of God of War, he doesn't have a lot of the crazy power-ups and all the different things that he had throughout the first God of War games. He has the Blade of Chaos, and that's a big one that he has, but, a lot of the other fancy, like the Wings of Icarus, Hermes' shoes, he doesn't have all of that fancy stuff. He might have some other things that we just haven't seen that we'll probably see in some other games, but as far as we know, we don't know everything that's been carried over from the previous games that are going to be in these new games. So, yeah. And that sword specifically was made to kill gods, and with that, he could most likely take out gods from other pantheons, though it might not work like that. They might have some sort of protections or immunities from those sorts of things. But I would assume that the Blade of Olympus would be strong enough to take out other gods from other pantheons. I don't have a good reason as to why the Blade of Olympus wouldn't be able to kill other gods from other pantheons, just pure speculation. And so yes, Kratos would be able to kill primordial gods like Atom, for instance, but being a primordial god, Atom's kind of sort of OP and probably out of Kratos' league. Plus, if Voth has the power to take down Kratos because of the fact that he knows bajillion spells and it's just kind of OP, I don't see why Atom would have too much of a problem with Kratos. But hey, if he has 3 games again to sort of work out a way to kill Atom, then I suppose why not? Could be written that way, the story can be written that way, possible, I guess. But yeah, that's more or less the video. Kratos is kind of unfair to fight, a bit OP, so yeah, a lot of gods would probably be trembling in their boots, or at least trembling midway through the fight when they realize that they're going to die. But yeah, because Kratos doesn't have much mercy. I suppose the types of gods who really would have a better chance of taking out Kratos are also gods that don't necessarily fight in a straight-up way. Any sorts of, psychic, mental attacking gods. I'm sure by the time of God of War, Kratos has at least some sort of resistance against that sort of thing, or at least, he's aware that those things are his weaknesses, so to some degree he might be able to fight them a bit, but I have no idea to what extent he's able to fight those sorts of attacks, and those are most likely the way to go against Kratos. But if you enjoyed the video, go ahead and leave it a like, and of course subscribe to the channel for more content just like this. And till the next one, have a very good day. I have been Brian. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye bye.